Well, there for a while, you were identified as an environmental sciences alum rather than a health behavior alum. There was some.
I don't know how that happened, but I had, what shall I say? I had to talk to Dan over the phone from California. You know how a lot of cities do not have fluoridated water.
Mm-hmm.
And there were these groups that went around fighting fluoridation, and the city of Mountain View then was considering fluoridating water. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but it wasn't that long ago. And I was a health educator, but also I live in Mountain View. And I thought I need to go support this because I know that the antis come out from all over the place. And so I went down to city council meeting, and I first spoke as a private citizen in support of fluoridation. And then when I got back to the health department the next day, I went to the head of the health department and say, do you want me to speak officially as a public health employee, or do you want me to continue to speak as a private citizen with a public health background? And she thought it would be more influential if I spoke as a private citizen supporting, and then the health officer came and supported it for the official position from the health department. But there was some rumors and stuff going on that I needed to get clear about water, and I called Dan Oken, and I consulted with him by phone about some water situation. I can't remember now what I talked to him about that I needed some professional input on for the water fluoridation thing. So that is how I talked to Dan. But how I got classified in that division for so long, I have no idea.
Well, I'm glad we corrected the error. And so you consulted him long after you graduated?
Yeah, it had been a long time. That was like, I don't think we've fluoridated either in the 80s or the 90s in Mountain View.
Okay.
And I had graduated in 1966, yeah. But I knew that Dan was an expert on water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to find his phone number. You know, on the internet you can find anything these days. So I was able to find his phone number and consult with him from his home on the situations that I needed information on.
Well, the other stories, I mean, there's so many, and if you already covered them with Vic, let's not repeat, but I remember your stories about what I would like to hear more about what campus life is like. I mean, you were in school and a working mother, and
yeah, we stayed in. I think in those times it was called Victory Village. All those Quonset huts have been torn down now, and buildings are the first year I stayed in the brick buildings, the newer buildings, and then the next years stayed in the Quonset huts, which were closer. They were built during World War II for veterans and their families. I guess there was some training that they did through the university for the World War II effort. And so we were like within walking distance of the School of Public Health. And I was teaching for those first 2 years. And so I lived on campus. My husband was a PhD student in anthropology at that time. So that's what brought me to Chapel Hill. My husband was pursuing a PhD in anthropology and came to Chapel Hill, and I got a teaching job those first 2 years. And then the third year, I entered the School of Public Health and got my public health degree.
So we're teaching primary education here in
Yeah, I taught sixth grade the first year. No, it was in Chapel Hill. I was on the Chapel Hill side. I taught the sixth grade the first year and fifth grade the second year.
Okay, and then from there you pursued a master's
Then
degree.
the next year, third year, I got a master's degree in health education, and was very lucky. I didn't realize at the time that it was Dr. Lucy Morgan's last year of teaching.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to ask you about your faculty members there, if you haven't covered that already.
No, I haven't.
Well,
And,
yeah.
I can't remember all the names, but I just remember Lucy Morgan, and some of the other names I cannot remember.
Was Hiawatha Walker?
Yeah, Hiawatha Walker. I think he taught us school health. I think it was school health. I think was one of his areas that he taught us. And
Eunice Tyler, was that a familiar
yes,
name?
Eunice Tyler was one of my professors. Are you bringing back some of the
Okay.
names that I was struggling trying to remember? And then there was one other lady. I don't think Eunice was not was a close friend of Lucy Morgan. I think it was another lady. Anyway, I remember 3 female teachers and Dr. Hiawatha. I also had one environmental health course, which turned out to be very useful for me. You know, you just don't know what you're going to need. I had an environmental health course, and I also had a city planning course, which turned out to be very valuable because when I left in '66, my husband took a teaching job at Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I got a job with the OEO program, Office of Equal Opportunity, and it was in the CAP program, the Community Action Program, and it was a county-wide program. And I was really the only one that had a background for community organization and working with the community. So all those things came into play there. And so worked with that for a year or 2, and then the city of Lancaster got a model cities program, which was still an OEO program, and I worked out of the mayor's office for that. And the city planning course came in handy for that. I sort of like headed up 2 tot lots being put into our project area. Without realizing it, I also did my first mediation because there was a problem in the community with the adult education program there. I don't know how the mayor saw this, but he called me one day and said, I want you to go down and see if you can work it out with this group. And I realized many, many years later that I did my first mediation, and that came because I also became a mediator for the city of Mountain View. And it was one of those sessions I realized, my first mediation session was when I worked for the model cities, and the mayor sent me down to mediate successfully with the adults in the program for that adult education. I don't remember what the situation was, but they were like at loggerheads with the school district.
So were you prepared for that because of your training here? Or?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just learn to find out what people want and see what you can do to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
That really, basically, one of the things I really learned from my work here, listen to what the community or what the people you're working with want. Not impose on them what you want. You might have some goals, but you might have to put those aside for a while. Because until they trust you, you're not going to move ahead with what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn to start with where they are, and then you can finally get to what you think they need. But also, I was telling Victor that when I was assigned to work in the drug treatment program and had to teach some courses, I had no idea. It was a women's drug treatment program. I had no idea what they needed. So I remember my first classes, I had made up a little blank questionnaire for them to tell me what subjects they wanted to learn more about. I had to teach health and parenting classes. And so I only had to do that one time. And once I found out where to start, then it just sort of flowed. And I find it works better that way.
Mm-hmm.
To find out what they are interested in rather than your agenda to start with. Because then they see you as a manipulator.
Sure, I can see
and
that.
won't work with you as well. Plus you will not make any progress with them. So that was very, very useful. And one of the courses that I audited at, my husband finished his PhD at Stanford, and I found out later that wives could audit courses, and I took this, audited this course, and I found out that positive things will get you more results than negative. And that was one of the things that I carried to my parenting classes, that taught my parents, my women, that if you only responded when your child did something negative, all you were doing is reinforcing that child doing negative things. You want to, if your child does something wrong, if you can not respond to it, but then catch them doing something good, and then start complimenting them. And I was able to get some of the women to understand that, and they got immediate changes in their children's behavior when they started responding to the positive. They reduce the negative actions of the children and increase the positive things. So that was a very interesting thing to see work.
We've always had an illustrious career and lengthy career, and that's still ongoing. Out of all the accolades you've received, what are the ones that have been most important and meaningful to you?
I don't know if it was really, we would get these service awards, but I think to me the most rewarding is when you saw results of what you were doing that maybe you didn't really get any necessary recognition for, but you know that you did good for someone, that you improved someone's life, that you helped someone improve their life. I had mentioned to Victor, I'm a court-appointed special advocate, and for a while when I first started doing this in 2008, I was running into a lot of my drug treatment women.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, some of them were back into using drugs. A few of them were completing successfully. And I had a couple of them come up to me, they recognized me and thanked me for what I had done for them. I saw this one woman smiling at me. Her face looked familiar, but I couldn't figure out who she was. And finally she came up and said, "You taught me classes in drug treatment." And she said, "You helped me a lot." That meant so much to me that I had actually had some success for some of the women, and they were staying clean and sober and moving on with their families. To me, that meant so much rather than some award or something like that. You actually did some good.
That's interesting. So, so now I understand you went from Chapel Hill to Lancaster, then out to Stanford, and that's how you got out to Mountain View, or was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I stayed 6 years on the Stanford's campus. I got a divorce and I had a job in public health. At that time, public health jobs are starting to slow down.
Sure.
And so I had tenure, plus I had 2 kids. And so I found a house in Mountain View that I was lucky enough to buy at the time. You cannot believe real estate now. I couldn't touch that house now. Bought a house and continued my career in public health. So I worked from 1972 to the end of 2007.
Yeah.
A lot of years.
Jumping around a little bit, I know that in past years you were connected with some of your elementary school students that you taught here.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've been able to keep up, or those relationships?
Yeah, I don't know. I have 2 students that are working on setting up a lunch for us on Sunday. This year they're going to go to Outback Steakhouse.
Okay.
So I don't know who I will see. This morning I had former student call me. She's in town for her mother's birthday. She won't be here for Sunday, but I'm going to see if I can get her tickets to the Light on the Hill dinner on Friday night, tomorrow night. And also we're going to get together either for breakfast or lunch on Saturday since she won't be here. She went on to, I've forgotten what her career, it's about as fact, she ended up going to Bennett, my undergraduate school.
Okay.
She didn't realize it, but one of her counselors or teachers in her high school here in Chapel Hill saw her and her demeanor and said, I think Bennett College will be a good fit for you. Yeah. And I think at that point, she sort of remembered that I went to Bennett, so she got her undergraduate degree at Bennett, and it has something to do with laboratory work that she did. I don't know if she became a lab tech. She told me what she did. It seemed to me she was with a pharmaceutical company. Mm-hmm. I think she's semi-retired or completely retired. She's going to be moving back to Chapel Hill.
Well, put us in touch. It's kind of remarkable to me that you have maintained relationships with students that you taught.
But for a while I didn't. I only got back in touch in 2007 or early 2008. It was just before my first attendance for one of the Black alumni reunions that I was able to make contact, because once I knew I was going to come, that was one of the things I wanted to do, was to see some of the former students. And a pretty large group when we had lunch that I was the host for at Mama Dip's.
Mm-hmm. It must be gratifying to have those relationships that have survived 4 decades or more.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's quite remarkable to pick up sort of not exactly where you left off, but
I never forgot them, and it was hard work. I worked hard because I wanted them to have success in life, and I'm pleased that some of them have had very successful careers, and some have gone on to advanced degrees. That is very, very heartening for me.
Now, this is not necessarily an interview question, but the 75th Anniversary magazine, have you received that yet in your mailbox?
Yes, I did.
I mean, your experience spans nearly 2/3 of the life of the school. Were there any particular things that jumped out at the magazine?
Well, I saw Dan Oken's picture,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was one of the first articles that I read. I was telling Victor when Mountain View was in the process of wanting to put fluoride in the water.
Mm-hmm.
There was still that tremendous anti-fluoride pushback. And strangely enough, do you know it's rearing its ugly head again? There are people that are now talking about trying to make municipalities take it out. What the general population does not understand is fluoride is naturally found in water.
Mm-hmm.
And in some places, the fluoride content is so high, they have to take some of it out to keep the teeth from getting yellow. I cannot believe. But I found out in working with getting fluoride in the water there, the anti-fluoride people, that's what they live for.
Mm-hmm.
They just like to fight.
Yeah.
They came into California from other states, and they would also give themselves some false credentials or try to identify. There was one guy that came from the San Diego area, and he said, "Oh, we're having this session at it was the State University, UC San Diego," and he said it like he was part of the faculty or staff of that university, to give himself some credentials he did not have.
Yeah.
And we had people come from the Midwest fighting fluoride. They just spend their life going around. But I know, too, that there's some people now, I know a little bit more about mental health, that they have to be against something. That
Mm-hmm.
is what keeps them waking up and going every day, is to be fighting something.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them find fluoride is the perfect subject to fight against.
Sure, I understand.
So now I'm on guard now when I've heard people talk about working to get it out. So I'm keeping my ears perched to be sure it doesn't start up in my area again, to want to take the fluoride out where we have gotten it in.
Do you think your public health career is involved? I mean, do you consider yourself an activist in any way at all, or is it more of a...
I see myself as kind of low-key. I don't really identify myself as activist. If something catches my attention that I strongly believe in,
Mm-hmm.
I will get involved in it. I'm probably now more involved in continuing parenting because of my court work, because of these women being on drugs. I was in a special court project once. The court system had a federal project to test out whether or not being nice and just applauding would help women recover faster or better or completely, compared to not giving them a lot of perks. And I found out a lot of the clients just took advantage of the perks. It didn't soak into me. You have to know a little bit about the mental health, what shall I say, the thought pattern to know which approach is going to work better. Sometimes a hard approach works better with some. Sometimes a softer approach works better with some. You cannot use the same blanket, I have found, in working with women or I think with drug addicts, male or female, but I just have worked mainly with females in my last job. When I worked in the Bureau of Alcohol when I first started, we worked mainly with families, helping them as health educators, teaching them about signs and symptoms and how to motivate their relatives to get them in for alcohol treatment, which is not easy. And for drug treatment, most of our women came in from the courts. And again, some of them were using the court system. Some of them knew who the easy judges were, and they would tell the other women, oh, you need to have this judge. They could get by. We have done, the court system did do some real groundbreaking court procedures that have been adopted by other courts in the United States. I wish I could, I think Judge Edwards was his name, that came up with some ways of dealing with family court that was very successful, that other courts around the country have adopted. But to me, it's still a learning process, seeing where people are. What do you think can mediate the situation? And then how can you implement this? Because sometimes, people can be very resistant. How do you get around resistance? And also that, you're not doing it for your own aggrandizement, but you're doing it to help people, even if you don't get thanks. You know you've done something good.
It sounds like it relates to your training that you got here and the other things.
Oh, yeah. In working with people, I told Victor, I find if you find out where people, what they are concerned about, and start there, you'll have more success with them in the long run, rather than running your agenda first.
Yeah.
There'll be resistance towards your agenda because they'll also think you're trying to manipulate and whatnot. Find out what their concerns are. And that's the way that I went into my last assignment for drug treatment. I had to teach health class and 2 parenting classes. I did a little survey to find out what they were interested in. And then once I got going, it just rolled. But I found out what they wanted to hear first. And then I observed them to see what I felt they needed that they were not aware of. And then we went that way. So I felt I had a lot of success with the women.
Well, to switch topics a little bit again, because I'm very interested about the tenor of the times when you were here in the mid to late 60s, and how the political climate informed your time here, what it was like to be on campus. Was it a contentious time, or was it
well, in that the university integrated on the graduate school level, I was the only black or Negro person in my health education class, so I have no classmates. I have no black classmates. There were 3 ladies from India in my class, and 1 guy from Pakistan, and the other students were white. But I had no problems. Just before I came, the summer before I came to the School of Public Health was the first year that Head Start premiered. And I was one of the 10 teachers selected to teach in Head Start. The summer before that, I was the only black teacher selected to teach in a reading readiness program. The Council of Churches in Chapel Hill underwrote a reading readiness program to try to bring the kids together before they entered, I guess it would have been first grade, because I don't think kindergarten was that universal at that time. And I was selected, I was the only black teacher, and I think that was because my test scores for the kids that I had taught at Frank Porter Graham just zoomed up. And they felt, I guess, that I had good teaching skills, I guess.
Sure.
Plus I had a high profile in music too, so that probably helped. But I think it's my test scores. And so I had taught in Head Start before coming in. So the teaching background was also valuable for coming into public health, because we also had some school health classes. I think his name was Dr. Hiawatha Walker, I think he taught that. So my teaching experience was good. Also, that past teaching experience helped me being a health educator when schools in California and the county of Santa Clara wanted someone to come out and speak. I was probably the health educator most comfortable in speaking to classes because of having taught elementary school.
Sure.
I could control the kids
Mm-hmm.
and sort of know how to keep their attention span. So everything is sort of like kind of built on
Yeah.
each other, and so that was a very good time, and I learned a lot of things that have been stood me in good stead in the School of Public Health.
Well, thank you for your time. We've taken a lot of your time. It's been well over an hour, so
Yes.
I'll cut the camera now. I think
Okay.
that will be all fine, and give you a little chance to rest, and then we'll go downstairs and meet some of our current students and faculty.
Oh, wow, that should be exciting.
Yeah, there's the dean does a nice thing. We have a, even though we can't have the picnics on the front yard, I think like you did, when you were here on campus.
I don't know if we had any picnics. I can't remember if we did.
Maybe that was later on. We always hear about
later.
these famous picnics and softball games, and anyway, that was probably.
I definitely don't remember. I don't definitely remember softball games.
Okay.
I think those good things came after I left.
Well, gosh, Bernice, this has been terrific. I'm so glad you made time. Vic